Everyone, hello. I'm just allowing everyone to join. We've got a lot of people on the webinar. It's lovely to see everyone, although your cameras are off. Let me introduce myself. My name's Kylie Bryant. I'm a senior producer at CoSTAR National Lab, part of the CoSTAR network, and we're here for the LiveLab, CoSTAR LiveLab's webinar about our first funding call, which we're excited to meet with everyone today and tell you a bit more about the call and answer all your questions and hopefully encourage your applications. Let me do a few housekeeping notes before we start. One of the reasons your cameras are currently off is we are recording this webinar for YouTube so that we can post it, people can refer back to it, or if people were unable to make it, that they can watch along. So if you would prefer not for your face to be seen, leave your camera off. But when we get to the more interactive and question part, which is the main focus of the webinar, and you'd like to, if you would like to turn your cameras on or camera on so we can see your faces and talk to you, that would be nice, but not necessary. Regarding questions, please, even if you are planning to turn your camera on and we'd like you to ask your question yourself, if you'd post it in the chat so that I know it's coming, and then I can say I can see your question. Simon, please, are you happy to turn your camera on and ask your question? Otherwise, I'll read out your question and we'll respond to your question. And if you're super shy or uncomfortable or want to ask a tricky question, all of those options, you can ask a question anonymously. So feel free to do that if you do so really feel you need to. That's also available to you. Just to introduce everyone who is on the call from the LiveLab team. We have Professor Damien Murphy. He's a professor of sound and music computing at the CoSTAR LiveLab, and Professor Gavin Kearney, who's co-director at CoSTAR LiveLab. The lab opened a few weeks ago. It's very exciting, and we've got 4 labs across the network opening at the moment. So the CoSTAR network is big and lots happening. So it's great to have the LiveLab team here to specifically talk about their lab and their opportunity as their first off. We also have Glenn Kelly, who's our program manager. Thanks, Glenn. And in fact, I noticed that we do have Damien and Glenn here, not Gavin yet. We're having a few technical issues with Teams. I really appreciate that you've all managed to join without too many problems because it can be tricky sometimes. I'd also like to introduce our team from the National Lab. We have Professor Will Saunders, who's our creative head at CoSTAR National Lab, and Miles Burney, who will be joining us shortly, who's our co-head of innovation, with Becky Gregory Clark. I always get her double-barreled name mixed up, but she's part of our team. She's not able to make it today. And Anna Dalton, Anna and I are managing the webinar. Anna's just making sure all of our speakers can join. If you have any technical issues, message us in the chat and we will try and help you. And if you have joined on your mobile phone, it is sometimes difficult to post questions in the Q&A box. It may not even be available to you, so it's best if you have joined on your browser. But thank you, everyone. Let's get started.
Okay,
will I hand over to you, Will, to open
thanks, Kylie.
proceedings?
So, just covering off what we're going to be doing today. We'll try and get to the Q&A and to all the questions I'm sure you have about this specific call as quickly as possible. Before we do that, we'll be describing and explaining to you what CoSTAR is. And this is our first access program, but we'll be launching a bunch of calls across the year. We'll be diving into what LiveLab is, what facilities they offer, what expertise they have, and what's on offer to companies for this call. We'll be looking into the specificities of this call and the eligibility criteria for application. And we'll be talking about some of the practical considerations when it comes to this grant application and what would happen were you to win one. So let's start by bringing up a tiny bit of information about CoSTAR. So Kylie, if you could just bring up the first slide for me, that would be great. I'm sure, I hope many of you already know this, but CoSTAR is UKI's largest investment into creative industries research and development so far. We are an infrastructure grant, which means we've spent quite a bit of money on bricks and mortar. We're a network of different labs across the UK with different specialisms. We're here because LiveLab are launching their first call. LiveLab are anchored by the University of York, but based at Production Park, and have expertise and specialisms in live touring and many other things that they're going to share with you today. We have a real-time lab in Dundee that launched this week, partnered at Abertay University. They have experts in real-time technologies and very close relationships with the UK's game sector. Next week, we'll see the launch of ScreenLab in Belfast, a advanced production hub, one of the largest in Europe. They'll be doing enormous amounts of activity across TV and film. We have a Foresight lab in London, which specialises in creative industries, foresight and intelligence, anchored at Goldsmiths. And we have a national lab in Buckinghamshire. We will be launching our studio at Pinewood early in 2026, when we're anchored by Royal Holloway University and partnered with the National Film and Television School. As I say, this is the UK's largest investment into creative industries research and development to date. And a lot of time and effort has been spent in getting this off the ground. So we're very grateful to our funder, the Arts and Humanities Research Council, for the faith they've showed. Let's move into the specificities of some of the programs we're launching and why you're here today. I'm going to throw to Miles, but I'm not sure if he's there. So if he's there, I'm going to ask him to pick up. If he's not, Kylie, I'm going to ask you to put the next slide up.
I will. Excellent. Technology behave itself. Hello everybody, I'm Miles Burney, Head of Innovation on CoSTAR. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the access programs that we'll reference there. We have two, Enterprise and Commercialization, and a Prototypes Pilots program, PPP. Kylie, could you skip on one, please? Okay, so as I said, two programs for UK companies and partners. Really to access the infrastructure, as we'll mention, this is an infrastructure grant, but also the expertise within our network. And together these access programs are put in place to help build and strengthen the UK creative technology ecosystem. So enterprise and commercialization, well, what's that all about? It's really about helping companies grow and also to commercialize their ideas through prototypes and pilots that they might be working on. The call that we're telling you more about today is part of the PPP program, Prototypes and Pilots, so we'll come on to that in a minute. But just to flag that the Enterprise and Commercialization Access Program opens next week, so to encourage people to sign up to hear more, you can do so at the CoSTAR Network website. So the call that we're giving you more information about today is part of the Prototypes and Pilot Program, PPP. And this is, Kylie, if you could just skip on to the next slide, please. So PPP's over £3 million fund to really test out that infrastructure that we've been building across the network and really ensure that we can kind of work out how we can encourage R&D activity that leverages that infrastructure and that investment, and really to promote collaboration that bridges across industry and our academic partnership within CoSTAR. The Access Programme ensures that firms can get access to that equipment and that technology, but also importantly, the expertise that sits within the network and hopefully broker new collaborations across the network with companies and academic partners. That's a whistle-stop overview tour of the two Access programs. I'm going to pass you back to Will now to give you more detail and introduce the LiveLab call itself.
You're on mute, Will.
And sorry, just before we'll get started, I can see quite a few people are having trouble viewing the presentation. My apologies for that, but we've taken note of your name and we will email you the presentation. And the key part of this webinar is for you to talk directly to us and us to answer questions. So the presentations are just very simple visualization of what is being said as well. So not missing out on a great deal there, but I will forward it to you nevertheless. And Anna will try to do that within this meeting time, if you can, Anna, when you get a chance, person by person. Thank you.
Thanks, Kylie. So let's get to the meat of this webinar today and find out a bit more about LiveLab. So I'm hoping Gavin is there. And Gavin, are you able to give us an outline as to what LiveLab's all about and the sorts of facilities that are going to be on offer to companies?
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Can people see the slides?
Looks like your sharing's doing better than ours, but go ahead.
Okay, great. Over to you, Gavin. Tell me when to go.
Thanks, Damien. So yeah, welcome everybody. Good to see you all. So I'm Gavin Carney. I'm one of the directors of LiveLab, along with my colleague, Professor Helena Daffern, who can't be here today, unfortunately. But I'm excited to share with you some of the details about the lab and the infrastructure that we have and the sort of things that we've got on offer for this PPP call. I guess the key thing about LiveLab is it's not just another research and development center. It's essentially a sandbox that's a dynamic sandbox that's designed to really push the boundaries of live performance and what's possible with live experience. We're really looking at the convergence of technologies, the convergence of physical and digital worlds to allow creatives and technologists to collaborate and innovate like never before for pushing the boundaries of live performance. So we're really into thinking about the production, the audience engagement, the staging of live performance, but whether it's through immersive audio and visuals, whether it's through virtual production, network performances, we're looking at the convergence of tech and how we can combine all of these exciting technologies to create these new exciting experiences. So Damien will talk a little bit specifically about the call shortly, but for CoSTAR LiveLab, what we'd really like to see for this is companies who are leading in live performance and immersive technologies, or in VP, or in immersive audio and visuals, or gaming, or interactive media, even companies dedicated completely to AI, or audience engagement, or even sustainable technologies. How can you take what you've what you have to offer and converge with other technologies to create something new and exciting and innovative for the live performance world? Damien, if you want to move to the next slide.
There we go.
Okay, so just for the next few minutes, I'm going to talk a little bit about where LiveLab is situated and about the infrastructure that we have on offer. First and foremost, LiveLab is based at Production Park in West Yorkshire. So for those of you who have never visited Production Park or don't know what it is, it's like Europe's best kept secret in the live performance industry for a very good reason, because you have major artists, everyone from Beyonce to Pink to the Rolling Stones, come and set up their shows in their large arena stages there. And a whole load of logistics trucks come and take them out onto the road. And it's this campus of companies that are all dedicated to innovation and live performance that makes this place really exciting. Companies like Tate, companies like 4Wall, like Row, all at the cutting edge of live performance technology. And we have a research and development lab in the heart of all of that. And that strategic location is crucial for LiveLab. It means that we're not operating in isolation, but we've got real direct collaboration with industry pioneers, allowing us to rapidly prototype and to test and to implement new technologies in real world scenarios. So the infrastructure that we've got available, Damien, next slide, please. The infrastructure that we've got available is quite a broad range of technologies. Again, in looking at the convergence of these different technologies to create these unique live performance experiences, that's the way our lab has been set up. So we have, for example, a future venue stage, which is a large area within our lab, which includes a 32-channel LISA system from L-Acoustics, who are one of our lab partners. It also includes high-resolution Vicon motion tracking, as well as markerless motion capture. We have a user experience laboratory, which is dedicated to looking at how audiences on a small scale can perceive, for example, the streaming of live events, and do they get the same experience that they would have as if they were at the actual venue and at the actual gig. So we're looking at things like biometrics, heart rate, skin conductance, all of these interesting features of emotional response of an audience member. And then we can actually take that data that we extract and scale it up to mid-sized audiences, so 40 to 100 people in our future venue stage, or we could go all out and go to one of the large arena stages at Production Park and literally have thousands of people and think about high value experiments with a lot of people in the room and see what we can do. So we also have high performance computing backend to it, as well as our own private 5G network, which has been installed by BT. So that enables all sorts of creative experiments when we talk about accessible networking technology within a live performance as well. On that regard, we also have two highly acoustically isolated, dedicated performance spaces where people can test new technologies that could be, for example, deployed over the internet. So, for example, if you were doing something in networked music performance and you had performers remotely connected over hundreds of miles, but in a shared virtual space, then you would be able to test that technology within our lab within controlled conditions. We also have a full digital twin of LiveLab, so that enables us to do some really cool experiments and prototype things in a very meaningful way before we actually deploy them in the lab. And that, of course, has full lighting control and full audio control built into it as well. So very useful tool to have. Next slide, please, Damien. So the technology is one thing, but the expertise is needed to drive this. And of course, that's why LiveLab brings together the world-class expertise of researchers from the University of York with the people who drive the industry in a very meaningful way at Production Park. And so we have across the gamut a wide range of expertise, from virtual production workflows and Unreal Engine integration through to motion capture, through to AI and machine learning, immersive and interactive audio systems and visual systems, network performance solutions, performance science, audience, human-computer interaction and user experience, and also thinking about accessibility for creative technology, so how we can make new live performance experiences more accessible to people maybe who have visual or hearing impairments or neurodivergent people, or sustainability and net zero initiatives as well, thinking about the expertise that's required there for innovations that are environmentally responsible as well. And finally, of course, the expertise needed in creating virtual worlds that will push the boundaries of digital storytelling and user engagement. So basically, we're opening this call to really look at projects that will utilize the technology and push the boundaries of the technology and allow us to create some excellent demonstrators of the technology moving forward. So if you're working or if you've got ideas in, for example, live performance and hybrid events, or if you have new workflows in virtual production that serve the live performance industry, or audience engagement and user interaction, or if you're thinking about stuff like volumetric capture and motion tracking and how that could be broadcast, for example, or spatial audio and sound reinforcement for live events, we want to hear from you. So it's open, it's wide gamut of things that we're looking for, but it's really to push the boundaries of the existing technology and to try to create something innovative and new from that. That's enough from me, Damien.
Thank you, Gavin. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the call itself, although hopefully those on the call today have at least had a quick look at the documentation that supports this. So I'm just going to do sort of headlines, and then hopefully we can tease things out in the Q&A. And don't be shy about putting your questions in. We're happy to deal with anything today, or in the follow-up. So it is worth saying that this is the first call for any of CoSTAR. So there are going to be other calls coming from our other labs in subsequent weeks, and the Ideate program opens next week as well. And so this is the start of something, and we will have subsequent calls in the coming years as well. So this really is just the start. And for us, as Gavin said, we've got this infrastructure now, we've got this expertise. It's about throwing our doors open for the sector to come and experiment with us using what we've got. So for this first call, then, we're looking to fund up to 3 projects. Gavin's outlined some of the vision as to what you might be pitching for in that area, but again, we're interested in the broad remit of what we can support you in. There's up to £13,000 in cash funding per project, and it's worth saying a little bit of detail around that. So that, well, when we can come into this maybe in the eligibility or questions you might have, but that's to fund the applicants to come and do work with us. So it might fund some equipment, it might fund staff time, it might fund buying in some additional expertise into the project. So it's to fund you to come and do the work with us. And then in addition to that, because we are very much aware that this is a distributed national infrastructure and we're all around the country, and LiveLab is particularly in Production Park, which is actually, it's about half an hour between Doncaster and Wakefield, so it's a bit in the middle of nowhere. So we appreciate there's a travel issue, but this is going to be the same for any of the other calls for the other labs as well. There's a travel and subsistence bursary that can be used to help you travel to where our lab is or one of the other labs, so that it doesn't have to come out of your main project costs. So it's £13,000 in cash funding for the project cost. There'll be travel and subsistence available on top of that, and then we are supplying in-kind access of £100,000 worth of facilities and expertise, which is what Gavin has just outlined. So all of that, the infrastructure that we offer in LiveLab, all of the expertise is brought to you and your project in the time that you spend working with us. So that also includes 2 one-week intensive R&D sprints in our lab, so or the equivalent thereof. One of the things that we will do once we've selected the successful applicants is we'll work to onboard you into our facility and work out what works well for you, what works well for us in terms of what else we've got going on in the lab, so that you get the maximum benefit and value from the time that you have in our facility. So that could be 2 weeks back to back, or it could be separated over 2 single weeks, or maybe even further. But again, we'll discuss that with you if you're successful in the project. But we'll give you 2 weeks or equivalent in the lab with our team and our facilities to enable you to work towards your prototype, your demonstrator, to test ideas out, to bring an audience in and do some work with them. We also can offer subsidised rates for additional infrastructure. So as Gavin said, our lab, which you get in kind as part of your project, is in the middle of Production Park's wider facilities, and we've got negotiated rates into the other parts of what they offer, which includes their virtual production stage with the usual large LED wall and motion tracking and everything else, which is right next door to our lab. And then some, if you wish, some of the larger arena studios if you wanted to do something very, very large scale. Again, if you're interested in getting access to those facilities, it's probably best to have a conversation with us as part of your application stage so that you can work that into your project budget. But the time in our lab is free and in kind, and that won't cost anything or come out of your £13,000 of project budget line. So that's what's on offer. Up to £13,000 in cash plus travel and subsistence on top of that. £100,000 of in-kind access through 2 one-week intensive R&D sprints in our lab with our people. Of course, all the wraparound support that we give you as part of that for the project and to enable you to realise your ideas. Subsidised rates into the additional infrastructure that's on site if you need that as part of your project. And the deadline is the 20th of March. So hopefully you've got some questions on the back of that, and we'll deal with them today. And as Will will say, we're going to have a frequently asked questions document as well. But there are also some other opportunities to engage with us only one before the deadline, unfortunately. So we've got 3 events coming up where you can come and find out a bit more about what we're doing with some of the partners that we've been working with either previously or currently, and to get a sense of some of the projects that we are running or would like to run in the future. And so they're on the slides now, and there's an Eventbrite page which lists all 3 of them as well. And please do sign up, and it's a good opportunity if you want to actually come and visit our facility and see what it would actually be like if you want to work there. Okay, so that's it from me. Back to you, Will, I think.
Thanks ever so much, Damien. Also worth pointing out that everything Damien's just said, including all of the eligibility criteria, all of the information on that travel stipend, all of the information on eligible, allowed and disallowable costs, it's all on the project brief, which is on the website. So please do download the full project brief and make sure, even whilst we're talking, you can go and have a look now. And whilst you're doing that, I'm going to ask Glenn, as program manager at LiveLab, are there any practical considerations, Glenn, people should bear in mind when coming to work at the facilities or when they're thinking about applying? Is there anything you'd like them to know now?
No, I think the key stuff, like you say, Will, is on the project brief. So total project duration can be up to 3 months, and they've got to take place between the 1st of May and the 31st of October 2025. And then just a reminder on that closing date for 20th of March 2025. In terms of getting to LiveLab, it is a bit out the way. We're about 15 minutes from Wakefield Westgate, about 25 minutes from Leeds. There's a direct line to a station called Moorthorpe. But yeah, there's a bursary to cover all travel costs. Just bear that in mind when you're planning on getting here. But I think that's the main stuff from me, Will.
Okay. Obviously, if it's good enough for Kings of Leon, it's good enough for everybody. We can all get there, I'm sure. Right. So I think we've heard from everybody now with regard to the overview of CoSTAR and to the LiveLab facilities and the call itself. We're now going to throw it open to the floor. So please do post any questions you have into the Q&A. You can post them anonymously if you want. And it's also worth pointing out that you can ask us questions afterward. All the information's on the website. And I've noticed, I think there's already one anonymous question up there, which I've seen, which is about eligibility and location. So I'm just checking here. The lab has mentioned its location, but do I need to be local to apply for the call? So I don't know, who would like to pick that up? Because I know it's in there.
Yeah, I'll pick that up, Will. It's a good question. Absolutely not. No. I guess this is, as we try to make very clear, CoSTAR is a network of labs around the whole country, and it's a national infrastructure for the whole of the creative sector in the country to access. So no, you don't have to be local to Yorkshire or even West Yorkshire, which is the area it's in, to come and use or apply for these facilities. Of course, it's about getting people into the lab so that they can use them, and so we can understand better what this infrastructure is doing and how we can make it fit for purpose in terms of how people use it. So we want you to come to us and spend some time with us, hence the 2-week sprints, and hence the travel bursary, to make that as easy as possible for people to come and visit this lab or indeed any of the other labs in the subsequent calls.
That's great. Thank you. Please do post in the Q&A if you have any problems. Maybe are people able to put their hand up and indicate that they want to ask a question just via Teams? Yeah, Kylie, people can do that if they want to. Yeah,
absolutely.
Cool. Okay, I'll continue on the eligibility front. Just wanted to, we tend to get, and it's lots of different programs offer opportunities for freelancers, for sole traders, for artists, and so on. If you're a freelancer or a sole trader, are those sorts of people able to apply? Is that something somebody wants to pick up?
I'll pick that up, Will. So we're very much interested in researchers, freelancers, sole traders being part of this process. However, only limited companies can apply to this process. So it's, as Will mentioned earlier, like a lot of the details on this are available on the website. It's worth everybody having a look at that and making sure that, you know, if they're interested in applying, that they meet those eligibility criteria. But at a broad brush, it's limited companies that we're opening the access program to.
Can I just follow up on that, Miles and Will? So there's a question which probably fits in really nicely, which is, can applicants be collaborations between two or more organizations? If so, does it require a single entity or lead application entity? So I guess that would be, an application can have more than one partner, and that will be a way for freelancers to get involved in a project, but it would need one lead. Is that right, Will?
That's correct. And we do need that lead entity to be a limited company, in terms of, like, freelancers and research organizations can be a part, but the lead applicant must be a limited company.
Sorry, there's a couple of, I just wanted to do a housekeeping. If you can put the questions into the Q&A rather than the chat, the chat channel, because it's easier for the speakers to see. But Joe, do you want to ask your question? Are you there, Joe? Happy to. Do you want me to read it out for you if you don't want to turn your camera on? It's so hard presenting to a bunch of black boxes. Joe's question was, and Anna, have you made, I think we've lost Anna. But Anna, if you are here to make,
I'm here. People can now turn their cameras and mics on if they wanted to. You're allowed.
Okay, fantastic. You're allowed to turn your cameras on. You might have, but you have to turn it on yourself. Joe, are you planning any further call outs after this one? And if so, can you give us a sense of timeline? So it's sort of two questions, one for LiveLab and their call outs, future call outs. And the second, I'll turn to you, Will, on CoSTAR more widely, and some other call outs. But if LiveLab team?
If I pick up CoSTAR, I think Damien and Miles mentioned a program called Ideate, which is part of our enterprise and commercialization activity that will open next week, which there'll be loads of details on that from Monday. And again, just sign up via the website. As each of the labs open, they will be running one of these types of calls in order to get companies to engage with the infrastructure. So the next lab that will be open will be like Real-Time Lab. So their call is imminent. Their call will open in March. Then there will be a call from Screen Lab in Belfast. Their call will open, I think, start of April, end of March. Then the National Lab will run a call. And the aim is to run 3 windows across a year where we will be able to publish calls. And we're hoping we'll be able to put more than one call in each window. And we'll run those windows from January through to April, from May through to July, and from September through to December, in terms of the windows of availability to apply. But these access programs are just one way of being able to access the labs. So when it comes to LiveLab and other plans, they made reference to the engagement opportunities they're running very soon. Damien and Gavin, is there anything you want to add when it comes to the ability to engage with LiveLab?
I think from the CoSTAR perspective, Will, you've summarized it very well. I think, we're hoping to have another 2 of these calls this year, and then subsequent to that, each year having 3 such pilots and prototypes calls. But also we have a very well-structured access program. So that is essentially going to be a whole suite of come and play sessions, and get used to the lab and get used to the infrastructure and meet the team and get inspired. And so those first encounter sessions, we had our first one yesterday, in fact, which was fantastic. And we have 2 more currently advertised. I think they actually might be even sold out, but there will be more coming up very shortly. And as Damien mentioned earlier on, we also have a suite of talks and workshops as well lined up for LiveLab. So at least the next 6 months are quite busy, and will be a chock-full program of stuff to get engaged with. So keep your eye on the CoSTAR website for the upcoming events that are happening in LiveLab, and they're all Eventbrite ticketed. So yeah, get in early.
Well solved.
Can I just throw it? There's a question that's quite way down the list, and I don't want to miss it. And it's probably one for you, Will, from Mark Ashmore. And it's basically saying, it's talking about the budget a little bit and confirm that we can pay wages for the week. So are wages an eligible cost out of the £13,000, Will?
Yeah, I think all the eligible cost conditions are included in the project brief. And I think if you're using your own team or freelancers, those are eligible costs. So do look it up. And if we don't have an answer to something specific today, just contact us and we'll get back to you as quickly as we can. Just checking as well, there's one here that asks, can you apply for more than one program? Is it possible to apply for PPP and enterprise for different projects? Is that, Miles, is that something you'd be happy to pick up?
Yeah, you can. So, we're just keen for you to apply to the programs and the access programs that you are most drawn to, and you might be drawn to more than one of those things. So that's totally fine. So please do.
Okay. I've also got, I've seen some people got their hands up. Shall we, Kylie, do you want to go round? Because I can only see a couple. You may have seen a few more than me.
I will, but I just want to, before we go to the hands, can I, there's a question from earlier that was in the chat, not the Q&A, which is, can you provide some information on how you define a prototype and pilot? And I think that's really key here. What we're talking about, is it a finished production, or what do we mean by prototype and pilot and coming in to use the lab? I think that's really interesting question.
Again, does anyone, Miles, you've done quite a lot of work in the prototyping space now, so are you okay picking that?
Yeah, certainly. So we are really defining prototypes as earlier stage work, so perhaps rawer ideas that are sort of fresher out of the wrapper. And pilots are sort of closer to market readiness. So, it's a hazy line between those two things, but we're just trying to signal that we're interested in both of them. Things that are, very, very emergent thinking, and things that are actually, more about market readiness. And that's the distinction that we're drawing between those two things. And hopefully that's of some help.
Yeah, I'll just add to that as well. I think, from the perspective that we've learned in some of the work we've done previously, for us, it's about projects that this is enabling them to be carried out at risk without having to move to a full production. So it's not for full production work. It's for testing at some earlier stage as to how that might be, but without having to worry about having to get that to market. So I think there's also a little bit of, well, you tell us what you want your pilot and demonstrator to be, and we're looking for really good ideas, of course.
Thank you both. Kylie, should we go to some hands, people?
Yes, great. Sophie, if you're happy to ask your question, please go ahead. Nice to have some voices other than our own.
Hello everyone, thanks very much for your time today. I just have a quick question just to dig into the eligibility a little bit more. I've heard you talking today quite a lot about the live events industry and quite a bit of a focus on that. Our project is sort of not that, and I want to check whether it is kind of still of interest. We are kind of quite specifically looking at workflows between blended virtual and physical sets, particularly involving child contributors. Our company works with linear kids and family television. I think Damien is very loosely aware of our project because we did the XR Stories residency and we're looking to build on that. So is that the kind of thing that you're interested in? And if it's not, then that's fine. I'm just trying to understand whether we should apply or not. Thanks very much.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah, go for it, Gavin.
Yeah, I mean, Sophie, what I would say is, yes, very much so. I mean, the blending of physical and digital worlds is something that is very much at the forefront of what we want to investigate and explore. And, what we're really interested is how that can be used in a live context, right? So you know, how you could have, for example, real-time interaction between the physical and digital worlds would be of great interest to us. Remember though, this is the first of many calls, and so what you work up here actually could be more applied to another call later on down the line from another lab, or potentially a call that goes across multiple labs, right? So yeah, it wouldn't be, I would say, it wouldn't be wasted work if you put it together. But at the same time, do bear in mind that we are looking for technologies that will serve live performance.
That's fantastic. And Patrick, you've got your hand up, and I can see several other hands as well, as we've still got questions to get to in the chat. So we'll keep rocketing on. Patrick, do you want to ask your question?
Thanks,
and
Kylie.
Sophie, sorry, Patrick, just before you go ahead, I hope that covered what you needed, but if you have any further, because you've got a very specific project, do feel free to talk to us directly. Sorry, Patrick, go ahead.
No, thanks, Kylie. The facilities sound amazing, and I appreciate the concise roundup from everyone that's taken the time. I think my question might in part need to be answered though by doing some more research on my part, and also Miles and Damien, I think, have touched on it as well. But I was just trying to get a sense of what could be achievable given the ratio of or the blend of cash versus gift in kind is quite pronounced, with the latter in kind actually being quite generous. What kind of but I suppose the flip side of that is the cash more modest. What is it you think could be what's kind of achievable and realistic from that?
Shall I pick that one up?
Yeah, please do, Damien.
We've, as our previous speaker has mentioned, and had a residency, we've done a similar but much smaller and with a different focus call in our XR Stories facility, some of which you may know about. Much smaller facility, much more modest, but we threw the doors open for residencies for artists to come in and use the facility for a week, and that was without any cash support. And we had a great response, and we did some brilliant work with 3 small teams. And I think the value of having a playground for a period of time with the wraparound support to help you solve problems in that was of significant value to those individuals over and above just a cash grant. So I think we're trying this now at a much bigger scale in LiveLab and in some of the other facilities as well. And so yeah, we are aware that the cash support is smaller than the in kind, but we think hopefully it'll be a good start to encourage people to cover costs and time to come and spend that time with us in the lab and to see what we do from it. I think, it's also about building those collaborations and understanding one another as we learn to use this infrastructure together. So we're going to learn from whoever comes to us as much as hopefully they're going to learn from us.
If it helps as well, CoSTAR came as a consequence of research that shared what might be missing in the innovation landscape is infrastructure for companies to go and use, right? Infrastructure that would have cutting edge tools, facilities, research expertise. If you put that against the spectrum of like what does Innovate UK do and the amount of innovation grants that are currently available, it's just another piece of that jigsaw. So, I would imagine many of you are thinking about using what we're offering alongside the potential to apply for things like Smart Grant or Creative Catalyst. We're part of that public innovation landscape. Hopefully what we're doing is complementary, right? We're not replicating what other people are doing.
That's really interesting. So if we've already got a Catalyst, Innovate UK Catalyst grant, so potentially could, and we're only going to get so far in developing the IP that we're doing in that project. So could we potentially use this grant offering to take, to develop another part of that or take that on to the next level?
being a recipient of or engaged in other forms of innovation grant is not that doesn't preclude you, or sorry, exclude you from being involved with us at all. What I'm trying to point out is I think the reason we're different is because we're infrastructure. So we are encouraging and driving towards the use of the infrastructure, and hopefully that complements what else is out there. So that's why the in kind is more significant than the cash. Does that? I hope that helps anyway.
Sorry, got lots of questions. So and some in the chat that we haven't got to as well. So can I get to? Sorry, I can see Nev and Anthony and Laurie, but first, could I go to AJ? You're there you've got your hand up. Are you willing to unmute yourself and say your question? Thanks, AJ.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for this call today. I have a question where I have been working on experimenting live performance with XR within the VR. I was trying to integrate performance live motion capture through XR using the XR technology. So if I have created a small piece, can I try and create a bigger piece? Like I have experimented live performance in XR till now, but I wanted to create the same piece to a whole prototype or something like that. So will that project be eligible for this?
Sounds great. So I'd be interested to hear it. Yeah.
Put it in, AJ.
Put it in, AJ. That's what we've heard. Sounds great. Interested to hear it. I think you're getting the idea of pilot and prototyping. So yeah. And I do encourage people to apply because I don't think in this case it'll be wasted time. We can point you in the right direction. We can, understand what you're trying to do for future calls we're building. So I do encourage you to reach out with just those specific questions. Anthony, I can see your hand up. And sorry, Naif, I'll get to you soon. Sorry.
Would you like to hear from me?
Yes, go ahead.
My question was just about commercialization and IP. I did quickly read through some of the stuff on the website yesterday, and so for example, IP that's created during the process of working at CoSTAR, would it reside with the creators that brought it in, or is there an agreement between where the IP is then jointly owned, or and also then for future commercialization, can you speak a little bit about your kind of approach to that?
Great. And I'm going to add a question that's come from the chat onto that, because it's all about IP, which says, we've seen after 2 years, if the project hasn't commercialized, the rights will be assigned to LiveLab. How do you define commercial success? So Anthony's question, who owns the rights in the beginning and then commercialization next?
I'll make a start, and then if anyone wants to kind of continue off the back of me, please do so. But the starting point for this is CoSTAR exists to help develop business growth, UK business growth. So the aim is for companies, if they arrive with their IP, to leave with their IP. There isn't a notion of really shared ownership with regard to a lot of the experience we have, and a lot of us have come from previous kind of innovation projects, like Damien did XR Stories, we did Story Futures. A lot of the aim was on bringing companies to the table who could bring and grow the IP by working with us, and they left with it. There were some instances where you might have somebody arriving with the IP and making it freely available for innovation around. So, for example, Discovery did that, BBC Studios did that, where they would retain, or the IP that they arrived with, they left with, but they would then go on to have a relationship with the company they'd innovated with, where there was a shared IP relationship and what came out the back end. So our interests are very much in business growth. So if you arrive with, you leave with, and we do everything we can to help you grow and commercialize the IP that is delivered as a consequence of working with us. When it comes to the idea of rights and commercialization after 2 years, I would say the specificities of that, we can include, if you wanted to, a conversation with our rights team in terms of what does that actually mean when you get involved, because some of this stuff is reasonably specific. But I would say the reason for that existing is we need to see exploitation of what comes about as a consequence of working with us. I think exploitation of what you deliver should be paramount in terms of thinking about how the R&D works. We would like to see whatever comes out of the labs to be exploited in some way, shape or form. And if it's not exploited within a specific timescale, it's down to, I think, the labs to look at what they could do potentially go after that period of time. But if you do have specific questions on that, we do have rights experts and legal teams, so that when you apply, you have certainty as to what that actually means. That's me being reasonably broad on it, but we are very focused on UK business growth. That's why we exist. Does anyone want to pick up on anything there that I may have missed?
Very comprehensive.
I think that covers it, other than to say that if you think about the enterprise and commercialization program, their activity is to specifically support you to be able to exploit your IP, either that you develop through our program, the pilot's prototype program, or you already have developed, or you're developing through other funding. It's to help companies in the sector to exploit your IP and make money from your IP and grow your business. So that is enterprise and commercialization. If that helps give you a sense of the difference of the two access programs. Laurie, you have a question? Oh, yeah, Laurie, sorry. No, 1 second, Laurie. Nerf, I said that. I
was going to say, I think they were first.
I'm not sure I've got your pronunciation of your name right, specifically
No worries.
because I can't
No
read
worries.
the
It's
tiny
Nav.
letters.
Yeah, no worries. It's Nav. Thank you so much. I'm mindful of the time, so I'll just ask quickly. I'm a PhD researcher. I'm looking at the idea of liveness in this, contested time frame where things are, technology and live is kind of, being contested. So, and I also work as a multimedia artist. So. It's this hybrid situation where I'm wondering would there be possibilities of postdoc research or research of any capacity where you could you take your practice and the idea of liveness and build on that. I understand that this is an infrastructure project, so that's why I was curious that whether those would fit in at any point.
Damien, I suspect would you be willing to talk to postdoc opportunities?
Sure. I guess I'd say that this is probably not the call for you, Naif, at the moment. I would encourage you to look to our access program, which is a way of other ways into the activities that we're doing. And I guess if you've got sort of a postdoc or researcher / sort of practitioner background and practice, then maybe the Ideate program might be appropriate for you, because that's about exploiting your IP and your ideas into new directions. So that might be worth looking at. So this is probably not the right call for what you're pitching, from what I've heard from what you said, but look for other ways in. And you could always just come and have a university to university conversation with us about what we do, and we can see what way there might be in for a collaboration, but not via the PPP program.
And I
Great, thank you.
Just to add to that, we mentioned it at the top, that the enterprise and commercialization program that Damien's referring to there, lots more information on that, and the real opening of that next week. So not long to wait for more detail on that, which hopefully will be useful.
And Laurie, what's your question?
Hello, it's great to meet you all. I'm currently working for BBC Live Immersive, and also run one of the biggest VR music event communities. One of the questions I had is, you've kind of outlined that EDI and sustainability is a kind of key part of this. I'm interested on some kind of clarity on what the specific kind of metrics and targets that you guys have to achieve from this.
Good question.
I was going to say, do you want me to make a... So at the moment, we have a series of what we're being described here as open calls. So what you're what you're here today for is an open call, right? Which is the ability to come and have a look at the infrastructure and tell us what you want to do with it. Within all of the calls that we advertise, when you apply, you will see that there's a social impact question that we're asking all applicants complete. With regard to that, we're going to put on training around things to do with EDI policies, environmental sustainability policies that we will help companies to develop. As a consequence of that, we're also going to be offering one-to-one mentorship with specialists in that area, and we will be running themed calls, which will be based around some quite either specific pieces of research or tooling that we're making available, or they may be around areas that the labs would like to see ideas around, and EDI and environmental sustainability will be a key part of those themed calls. But as I said, this is the first thing that we're doing. So at the moment, we're pushing access to the labs quite broadly. But within each application, we will have social impact questions and social impact obligations upon everybody who's awarded grants, and then we hope to be running social impact themed challenges as we grow and as we do more. We will definitely be doing that. So I don't know if that helps answer. If anyone's got any other things they want to build on top of that, please do so.
I just wanted to note that it is we are coming to the end of our time. I'm going to ask our speakers to stay on, and we will continue to address the questions that are in the chat. That way, we are recording this, as I mentioned, and we will post the recording online. So if you have another meeting you have to go to, or you need to leave, and you're worried that you missed out, we will carry on to answer those questions. You could also follow up with me, post this myself and Anna, and we will direct your email and question to the right people as well. So feel free to email myself or Anna, and probably you will have Anna's details as she's set up the webinar. But if you don't, I will post Anna. If you could post my email and your email in the chat for people to contact us directly. I'm going to see if you're okay, Will, for me to answer one of the questions, which is who makes the decision as to who gets funding and how are the decisions made? Or do you want to cover that?
Well, I think it's a bit. It's similar to the way you would imagine a lot of innovation calls. We have assessors that will be doing the majority of the assessment on all of our calls, in the same way that Innovate and other public funders use assessors. So that those assessors are domain experts and specialists that we've hired to be able to do the assessment. We'll have a shortlisting process that those assessors will do for us. And we have working groups that sit around all of our access programs that are made up of the labs that are engaged. And shortlisted proposals will go to working groups for recommendations and for ideas to be greenlit. And like I said, we're trying to get as many of these calls up and running as quickly as we can.
Yeah, there's a very extensive process with external assessors, and then internal assessment, and then a working group across all the network labs, even that all the network labs are a part of, even for one lab's call, and then down to the actual lab itself. So it's we've said that we will take 8 weeks, up to 8 weeks to notify you, and that one of the reasons is that we just have a very independent and a thorough assessment process that we have to go through for this, and transparent process that is important to us. I also noticed a comment about the lack of provision for freelancers, and when will there be calls open to us? I think it's probably important to talk about this because we know many of us that are on this call are or have been freelancers. We understand your concerns and pain, but there is specific funding that our remit, a specific remit, and maybe perhaps Will, you might want to speak about that and our position there.
I think, as I said, right, the CoSTAR has been created to engineer business growth. So one of the KPIs is growth of businesses, and that's what we have to evidence against. We are able to work with freelancers and creative practitioners and pull them into access programs, and the labs will also be doing their own research, which will allow them to engage creative practitioners and freelancers. But these calls that we're putting out now as funded calls have quite strict criteria we have to deliver against. And that's why they're structured in the way that they are. That we can definitely have creative practitioners and research organizations as a part of an application, but we need companies to lead them. And that's because of the deliverables and the key KPIs we are being charged with delivering, which are all around, UK business growth. So if anyone else wants to add to that or has a build on that, please do.
I think it just goes without saying, though, that we do want businesses to grow so that businesses are employing more freelancers, and that skills development continues across the network. And we still, we are, that's very important to us, and we hear your concern there. There is another question. Will you be able to provide at some point before the deadline some indicative costs for the in-kind support available so we are able to scale our proposals accordingly, e.g. exactly what could we expect for the 100K in terms of specific number of days, access to kit and expertise? It's a complicated question and it might be case by case, but I'll let you answer it, perhaps, Damien.
Yeah, let me pick that up. Thanks, Kylie. So there's a little bit in terms of the breakdown. We're not breaking it down by sort of piece by piece of equipment or hour by time. Gavin's given the outline of some of the resources that are available, both in terms of equipment and individuals within the lab and the expertise we bring. There's a bit more detail about that, but it's still quite top level in the grant application documentation too. But if you're successful in what you apply for, we'll work to make sure that you get the best value out of your time with us through particularly the 2 1-week R&D sprints with us, where you've got time in the lab with our team and with all those facilities. And of course, that doesn't mean that you can't come and spend time with us outside of that whilst you're working at your plans. And we'd encourage, if you're successful with your application, an early visit as soon as possible, just to see what it's going to be like and what you get access to and meet the team. And then you can start doing your planning and getting ready for those R&D sprints.
Just to add to that, the 100K figure is a ballpark figure that we've come up with based on sort of average use of our space for a number of practitioners across the 2-week sprints. It could be the case that you end up getting more in-kind support. It could be the case you end up getting less in-kind support. It depends on the nature of your project and how much of the facility, how much of the expertise and infrastructure you need to use to deliver that project. And if we feel that it's going to be of significant value to demonstrate the capabilities of the lab and has a really cool, innovative idea behind it, then we're going to do everything we can to support it.
There is an interesting question. Will the subject of experience also have an impact on selection criteria? I'm not 100% if you're there, AJ, exactly what you mean there. Do you mean how long you've been in business for, or your experience in the sector? Is that what you mean?
Not exactly. Like if I'm working on a subject of creating an experience based on animal cruelty or something like that, sustainability, environment, and everything. So will that have an impact?
Oh, will the nature of the content of your proposal, is that what you're specifically asking? Yes. For this call, well, I'll let who would like to answer that one?
I would say.
Oh, sorry.
I would say that each institution has ethical guidelines against which it will and will not be able to fund propositions. So I don't want to speak for York, but my expectation would be, Damien, that in that context, the guidelines York have around R&D would probably preclude, in the same way that Innovate UK wouldn't have animal cruelty, or that there are ethical guidelines each institution has in place that would probably come into play in this instance. Is that right?
Yeah, I think you're probably right. We'd have to, there'd be an additional set of hoops we'd have to jump through. Not impossible, but again, we could discuss in the nature of the project.
Yeah, so if you've got cutting edge content as well as cutting edge technology, that could be good, but it also could prove some challenges. But I don't think it rules you. You're not saying it rules anyone out at this stage, Damien.
No, I don't think so.
And we're not looking for specific nature of content, like specifically about particular topics. We would outline that much more clearly if we were. Okay, I'm just going back to the Q&A to see if we've covered everything. I feel like we've got close, but re-exploitation of IP. If we're working on a performance project where the end product will be live public performances, does this qualify, or is this really for projects that could eventually result in a commercial product that is marketable beyond the specific creative project that we're working on? Really good question, David.
Does anyone want to pick that up? Otherwise, I'd say it is. But Damien, if you're happy.
I think it's probably more about something that could end up as being a commercial product. But the other part of what we have access to in LiveLab is to, facilities that are there for commercial size activities, and so that would be. And if you wanted to test that with an audience, for instance, then there would be opportunities to think about how you'd manage that process as part of your R&D to understand it better. So again, I think it would really depend on the specifics of what the project is about, David.
Gavin, you got anything to add to that? Because I think you probably have the hands on the levers there.
Yeah, I think so in terms of the IP implications, I mean, of course, that's only in the case where there is IP generated. It could be the case that a pilot or demonstrator project raises more research questions than it answers. And for us, that's also a very good thing. And so it may not be that there is specific IP that's generated from the project, but that actually it is steering our research and steering the questions that industry should be asking in a particular direction. And that's equally valid. So we'd welcome that sort of project as well.
And I think that sits back in line with the kind of concept of, this evolution from earlier stage ideas through to sort of more mature ideas through prototyping a pilot, and is in many ways why we've tried to kind of put those two, kind of put the delineation around those and spell them out.
Thanks. Just back to the semi on the freelancers, but skills development, and a good question / suggestion here almost. Are there any opportunities for trainees or production specialists to aid in research outside of the direct funding? For example, could an Unreal specialist help the grant recipient for virtual production further their research, or would this need to be discussed with the recipient? Anyone want to take that one up?
I think that depends on the nature of the project, doesn't it? And so I feel the recipient, or rather when someone comes to do an application, needs to identify who they need in their team in order to deliver the project. And so if that's somebody who's going to be an expert in Unreal, then it's down to them to try to find that. Of course, we do have expertise in-house, and so if we can help with that, we will. So it's something that needs to be defined, I think, by the applicant, and that's the way forward with it.
Yes. So currently at this stage, the recipient is the one. Thank you, Anthony. I see your hand up there.
Do you? I was thinking about a question that was probably answered at the top of the call, but I missed the first 5 minutes, and I was just curious about what's funding this. Where's the money coming from? But that was probably tackled right at the beginning, and like I say, I was late. So it's
Arts and Humanities Research Council. It's one of the UKRI research councils. They helped fund the Creative Clusters program, which kind of preempted this. As I say, this is their largest ever investment into creative industries research and development, and the notion of the creative industries needing structured research and development funding. So we're hoping, that percentage just keeps getting higher and higher, and more R&D investment is forthcoming.
Fantastic. I think we've just about covered all the questions. Anthony, I'm not sure if you're still online, but there was a question there. Is it possible to give some examples of pilots and prototypes? What kinds of projects would they be tracking, and movement? Could crowd tracking and movement be one? And what are the limits?
I wonder if
that was Anthony Frisbee. But maybe he's
yes.
gone.
Hi, yeah, no, I'm still here actually.
Oh, great, thanks, Anthony.
Yeah, I was just wondering what whether there were any other hard limits on the acceptance, other than, for example, that it has to be used in live events. I was just wondering what the spectrum was, if there was any other caps.
I don't think so, but in this instance, I'm wondering if Miles, who's been doing a bunch of prototyping inside the National Lab, might be able to talk to any examples that might help. And I'm just wondering if, Gavin, in setting up LiveLab and the research you've been doing, if there are any examples you can help, just contextualize the question by sharing some of your own work, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I can just share some of the work we're doing in the National Lab. We've got an always-on prototyping function there, and we're trying to connect research from across that National Lab network with industry opportunity. We're sort of into our second major kind of prototype. We only do prototypes in a sort of 3-month sprint cycle. We've just come off the back of one looking at practical industry applications for Gaussian splat technology, looking at that kind of modeling and capture technology, and how it might be applied in animation, in virtual production, in photography and marketing, and fashion and sport. And we're now just moving into a prototype where we're exploring how generative AI can enhance live performance, so improvised live performance. And we're doing that both in a physical studio and thinking about digital distribution of that as well. So, I mean, they're early stage, they're sort of formative, they're fairly raw ideas. But even so, we're trying to think about how we connect those ideas, the research that sits behind them, with a real industry interest and need. Like, if we can't answer the sort of so what question, and who's interested and who cares, and how does this sort of help with either challenges or opportunities in industry, then we probably wouldn't be doing it.
Great. Sorry, Gavin?
Sorry, I was just going to add, just from our perspective. I don't want to get into too much detail here, because I don't want to influence the sort of projects that people might come and suggest, because we really want to hear what other people's ideas are. But just from our own perspective, some of the research that we've been doing has been quite focused a lot on immersive network performance experiences. So bringing together remote audiences, remote performers, connected venues, thinking about low latency solutions, and really making people feel like they're all in the same space performing and interacting together, and how we can make that the most plausible experiences it can be. Things like real-time digital twinning, so having a band on stage and actually having that completely replicated in the metaverse with non-invasive technology for the band. So thinking about markerless motion capture in that respect, and how you can represent that and stage that in the metaverse, and what would be the advantages to doing that, and what can you augment in the metaverse that makes it more value of an experience for people who are engaging in that context versus the real world. So this sort of stuff I'm personally super interested in, but that does not mean that that's the sort of project that we'll end up picking. So I really just want everybody to come up with unique and interesting ideas that will really showcase the capabilities of the lab.
Did that help, Anthony?
That was absolutely perfect. Thank you very much, especially the examples, for example, with the Gaussian splat and the generative AI in the performance space. Those definitely really help. Thank you very much for that as well, Gavin.
Gavin's points there, like, they're just examples, but don't be limited by those, please.
I love it.
Oh, sorry, Laurie, I've got two questions, but before I go, that I've missed in the chat, but before I go, and thank you everyone for being so engaged and for staying on to listen. But I think that prompted you to have a further question, Laurie. Go for it.
Very quick, I know we're ending up. I was just interested, you mentioned performers in the metaverse. I was wondering what platforms you've worked with in the context of metaverse, which Gavin mentioned.
So I mean, obviously Unity and Unreal are of course big ones, but also thinking outside of that, from the stuff that we've been doing, which we're very much on the audio side, right? So I'm not really talking about visual elements and so forth, but we we work with companies who have bespoke solutions, and again, if people have interesting platforms that they want to test and utilize the infrastructure that we have to test those out, we'd be willing to hear about that and happy to try to incorporate that into the infrastructure. So yeah, but the typical ones: Unreal, Unity.
Laurie, my hunch is, based on what you've told me, what you shared already, I would suspect the work Condensed Reality are doing with the BBC in this space is
I do work with them,
yeah, really interesting, right? And I think obviously we are all collectively aware of the engagement opportunities that Epic and others are throwing up onto these sorts of platforms like Fortnite, and I think for us there's lots of interesting opportunity in those spaces, but also to think about how those sorts of experiences might play out on other people's real estate. I mean, obviously reach and share is a big thing in this space, but but innovation and thinking about other potential platforms, and also potentially performances that might be possible where it's not necessary to play or to experience something inside a spatial environment that might be online. It might be another physical space, so it might be something that could happen in multiple locations, pop-up immersive spaces. There's all sorts of interesting variations on what's possible right now, right? And I think we have the license to look a little bit further ahead than most, which is a huge advantage and a tremendous opportunity.
Could I just say I would like to wrap it up before 2 p.m. So I'm going to get to the wrapping up part, but two very quick questions. Could a travel bursary include bringing a team member in from Europe? Very tricky, good question.
I think it's in the eligibility criteria on the terms and conditions on the travel stipend. I think it's possible. I do think it's possible if they're probably freelancer or sole trader. I'm not sure it's possible if they're a company, but because I don't think we're allowing subcontractors outside the UK when it comes to companies. But I think if they're freelance, it's possible. That's my
I agree, and I guess they need to justify it in
exactly.
in their bid, don't they?
We'd ask questions.
Yeah.
And is applicants from the Republic of Ireland eligible?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
No, I think again you're right. Well, I think they could be part of a consortium potentially. Again, with the eligibility criteria that Will's just mentioned about being an international partner on a UK project, but we couldn't make an award directly to a Republic of Ireland company.
We're all sad about Brexit. I am anyway. Are the companies able to submit more than one project to each lab call out, or are we limited to one application per lab call out?
I think you can submit more than one application if you choose to. If you've got that many good ideas, share them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. Excellent. It's the projects, not the number of, you probably wouldn't get, do you think, Will, both ideas would go through for one company?
When you think about the hope we have from the likely number of applications, it's going to be quite difficult for one company to win more than one call in one lab. But who knows what will happen, right? You don't want to prescribe too much at this point.
And that is a good point to just say that we are on LiveLab behalf, so I hope that's okay, that it is up to 3 companies, but it may be only 1 or it may be 3. It really it's not going to be funding for the sake of funding, but definitely the best ideas, which also works in the other way. Put as many ideas as you have in if you think they're relevant. I'm going to, if there's anything else, Will, I'm going to share some QR codes for people to connect with us and for direct links to places for the application form. I do want to say you can start an application form, please do, and you can save it and not submit it. You can keep it open. Another thing I want to say about the application forms is we have the platform we're using is enables collaborative application forms. And what I mean by that is if you think you can answer one question, but you need your colleague who's a technical specialist or another colleague who is filling out some other details, they can all sign in and you don't have to like get the answers and then put them in yourself. People can answer different questions within the form, your application form. So it's got collaborative submission process, if that makes sense. If you have any questions or any troubles with the application form, please contact me. If you need a downloadable version, if you find it challenging for whatever reason, please let us know. If you have any accessibility or challenges with completing the form, we're really here to talk to you. We want to see the best applications. We want to help you to put your best foot forward to LiveLab. So that's our role, to support you in completing a good application. So please ask me if you have any technical or other issues with the application form. I'm going to share the QR codes, and as I'm doing that, Will, would you mind or actually, I think it would be great to hear from the LiveLab team, Damien, Gavin, Glenn, if you've got anything to say, because we're really excited to get in the lab and get up there and work with you guys.
Go on, Gavin.
So, I mean, just to conclude, you know, I think the idea here is to really to be able to come into the lab, to work with the tech that we have, to showcase innovation in the tech that we have, but then also, you know, to think about, okay, well, what's the next step? All right, so we have, you know, all of this amazing equipment, we have all of this amazing infrastructure in place, but actually, what is the next thing that will really kind of transform the live performance industry? And is it something that you think you can innovate, or that you, in collaboration with other companies, can innovate? We want to hear about it. We want stuff that will really just demonstrate the cutting edge, and you know, just put your ideas down. If it's not suitable for this call, that's fine. But we're going to have many calls over the next few years, so hopefully it wouldn't be time wasted anyway. So please do put your ideas to paper and send them in to us.
Yeah,
thank you.
Add to that, we're available on email and LinkedIn. Please go and check out the CoSTAR Network LinkedIn page, because we keep that updated with as much info as we can. But yeah, feel free to reach out to myself, Gavin, or Damien if you've got any specific questions.
In follow-up to this, because it's hard to capture the discussion and follow the chats and follow the Q&As, we will send you all a follow-up email with the 2 PowerPoints and some key links, the links to apply, the links to our website, just so you have them all to hand. And also, so I did put, please do go to the CoSTAR Network link and sign up to the newsletter, because future calls and future opportunities will be there. And I think that's all from us. We're really excited to work with everyone, to have this opportunity. So look forward to seeing your applications and hearing from you again. Anything else, team? Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate your engagement.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cheers,
everybody.
See you soon.
Yes.
Bye.